ABC Women would like to thank BIPOC Executive Search for sponsoring today's episode.
The BIPOC Executive Search app is here for you. Get information about job opportunities we're recruiting for. Keep up to date and in the know about career news tailored to Indigenous, Black, and other racialized audiences. Gain helpful tips and learnings to help you on your career trajectory, celebrate job appointments, and more. The BIPOC Executive Search app, here to elevate the candidate experience for Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. Free to download and available on iPhone and Android smartphones.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 woman growing strong. 100 woman where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny, woman.
100 ABC Women would like to take this opportunity to welcome our viewers and listening audience, families, friends, and our sponsors to our inspirational conversations, fireside chats with 100 ABC honorees. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold initiative created by the co-authors, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, a former MP, Donna Jones-Simmons, a corporate diversity executive, and Dr. Denise O'Neill-Green, Vice President, Equity and Community Inclusion at Ryerson University. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as a website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. We are pleased to bring you a series of fireside chats, which include conversations around education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, legal, technology, entrepreneurship, diversity and equity, media, engineering, politics, sports, and so much more. These, we know, are topics that matter to us and to you. These educational and inspirational conversations will be made available to all current and future generations via our 100 ABC YouTube channel. This is a great way to learn from our elders, brilliant-minded and accomplished Black Canadian women. Please join me as I welcome our moderator for this episode, Harriet Thornhill. She is a Vice President at Royal Bank of Canada for the National Client Contact Center, leader, community advocate, and she's also a mentor to many. Without further ado, finance literacy. Harriet Thornhill.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100 ABC Women Inspirational Fireside Conversations. I'm so excited about today. I am joined by a much esteemed panel of 4 accomplished Black women to talk about building financial literacy. Let me introduce them. Christine Williams. has a banking career that spans over 35 years, and she has maintained a focus on helping individuals develop to their maximum potential. As a former vice president of Scotia Bank, Christine was responsible for marketplace management and the delivery of retail and small business banking services in the Toronto region. She is a chartered director, has served on many not-for-profit boards, and continues to do so post her formal retirement in 2017. Christine continues to spend her time volunteering for organizations that focus on education, healthcare, and youth. Currently, she is vice chair at Centennial College and on the audit and finance committees at the Scarborough Health Network Foundation. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
Clarke Glasgow. Clarke is an entrepreneur, educator, and volunteer committed to serving and giving back where and when required. As a salon owner, operator, doing nails and natural hair care is something Clarke enjoys. She has worked and volunteered in many sectors, from the finance industry as a financial planner to the beauty and wellness industry, providing clients with the necessary service and support to overcome and navigate their personal challenges and temporary setbacks. Clarke continues to spend her time sharing and encouraging her clients, especially the youth, by being an example and sharing valuable information and resources. Welcome, Clarke.
Thank you.
Patricia Glouden retired from the Bank of Nova Scotia in 2014 after 40 years. Her career began in the filing department, and she retired as the first Black woman on the trade floor and director in charge of the commercial retail money market department. She used every opportunity available to support many charities, but her favorite is Eva's Initiative, a shelter for homeless youth, where she was a board member and chaired their fundraising auction, raising over $1 million over 10 years with the bank as the corporate sponsor. Pat is the chair of the EDGE program, Empower, Develop, Grow, and Engage. The program consists of 13 workshops for male and female Black youth, 16 to 20 years, and is designed to give them the tools needed to navigate their way through life. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
Gemma Raeburn Baines is the founder and president of Plainmass Montreal Cultural Association and has launched Gems Tea, a fundraising scholarship program for youth and a means of bringing comfort to the community. She is also a founding member of the Spice Island Cultural Day Association of Quebec and holds the position of vice president and coordinator of the Spice Island Cultural Festival. A retired senior auditor at BMO Bank of Montreal, where she has worked for over 35 years. Gemma has been active in business, community development, and charitable initiatives. Hey, welcome, Gemma.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies, thanks so much. Ladies, before we delve into the theme topic here, I do have a rapid fire question for each of you. I know that we all have been navigating through some unprecedented times, filled with mixed emotions and a strain on mental health. We hear every day about resilience and taking care of our well-being. So could you share just quickly one thing that you have been doing differently to take care of yourself and your well-being? Why don't we start with you, Pat?
Well, I am on the board of my church, so I've been running Bible studies, women in the Bible. Women are not usually mentioned in the Bible, so we did many of the women in the Bible. Right now, it's springtime, and I'm an avid gardener. My garden is just beautiful. So I'm enjoying the outdoors by walking, gardening, and just enjoying God's green earth as it greens up and is so beautiful.
Awesome, thank you. Gemma, what about you? What are you doing?
Well, I have joined the Heart Failure Prevention Exercise Program at the Institute, Montreal Institute, Heart Institute, to improve my heart function, as I am a congestive heart failure patient. So I am trying to build up my heart muscles and put some focus on improving my health and being able to play with my little grandchildren who are now 2 months old and 3 months old. I've got two of them, a boy and a girl. So I'm
Oh
trying
my
to take care
goodness.
of my health and
Wow.
my exercise program. So that for me is a big deal.
That's awesome, Gemma, and congratulations on your grandchildren.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you.
Christine, what about you?
Well, Harriet, I've been hiking and forest bathing, and that's probably the first time you hear about that in the Rouge Valley. It's like therapy because you get a chance to take in the forest atmosphere. You consciously walk through the forest, walk through the woods, and immerse yourself in the sounds and the smells, and of course, the sights of the forest.
Awesome. Sounds really therapeutic. What about you, Perez?
Wow, well, you ladies I've not been doing much. I've actually spent a lot more time since I'm home listening. I start my day every day with Woman of the Bible, Woman of the Word, Dr. Cindy Trim. That's my daily mantra. I will move on to Ileana if I have times, but most importantly, I've been bonding a lot with my daughter, now more than ever. She's 22, and I talk to my grandsons a lot more every day. So this downtime has brought me a lot of time with them and building my spirituality. I mean, what else can we do? And connecting with the people that matter. Like I speak to some of my elders and my leaders almost every day.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, and I'll just weigh in as well. I mean, in addition to trying to strengthen my walk and my spirituality, like Christine, lots of time hiking and being outside during the day and lots of time with family. So, what I'm hearing from all of us is a focus on mind, body, spirit, and family. So thanks for sharing. So that's on a lighter note. Let's get into this topic of financial literacy. It's certainly not a new one, but it's a critical one. And especially when you think of some of the overwhelming stats from Statistics Canada and other studies, like 35% of Canadians do not save for retirement. 44% of Canadians polled live paycheck to paycheck. Canadians owe $1.69 for every $1 they make. And youth report not knowing who to talk to or how to start a money conversation as barriers to having conversations about finances. So Christine, maybe let's start the conversation with you. From your perspective, why do you think it's really important for us to place greater emphasis on building financial literacy?
Well, Harriet, the goal of financial literacy is the ability to manage one's money and to help in understanding financial concepts to manage money better. And as you said, it's a life skill that one needs to have for financial well-being. As a young girl growing up in the Caribbean, I supported my mother by doing the shopping. And I had to spend wisely and balanced within the amounts that were allotted to me. I also gained a tremendous experience when I volunteered at the local JC's chapter and was put in charge of the finances in our fundraising activities. I think everyone has a sense of what they want to accomplish in life, within the short term and within the long term. And I think there are two sayings that I pay attention to. A journey starts with the first step, and the other is when you start on a road trip, if you don't have a map, how will you know when you get there? Now, successful organizations all have a business plan that keeps them on track. So I strongly believe that as individuals, we also need to have a personal financial plan, a map, a blueprint, so we can achieve our dreams and our successes, our life success. When you ask everyone, or you ask anyone about what are some of the dreams that they have, you will hear education for my kids, my lifelong learning, buying a home, planning for retirement, or going on vacation, and so on. So taking the first step towards designing a personal plan is really important. And a plan can be as complex or it can be a simple one. It just depends on what you need. And with a simple page, a one page, you can actually prioritize what you really want in life and figure out how to get there. So it's not about looking for the stock, nothing to find the stock that your friend is pitching. It has everything to do with you and what's important to you, instead of worrying about money. Or, a one-page plan is better than no plan at all. So asking yourself the first question, why is money important to me? It gets you thinking about your relationship with money and why you have certain goals. And so knowing what's important to you and your values will be easy to say no to things that don't really fit in to your own personal goals. And again, it's really important to involve your significant other or your family, because you cannot overestimate money's role in that kind of a relationship. So a goal is not a wish. You first identify the goal, then you decide next what you want to do, and then thirdly, you find out how much it will cost. And next, you do a personal balance sheet. It's not complex. You just look at your assets and you look at your liabilities, you put it on one chart. And then the budgeting comes next. It's really about thinking about what's the income that's coming in, what's income from other gates, as they say, and how am I spending it? So tracking that spending is really critical. And so these are really simple skills to achieve those dreams and lead to better financial decision making and achieving financial stability. When you lack the knowledge and the discipline, you really get poor outcomes. And that is what we want to avoid.
Well, Christine, thank you. There's so many nuggets in there that I loved what you shared and how you started, that this is about financial well-being. And it's about having a roadmap is what I heard from you. And that roadmap doesn't have to be complicated.
That's right.
It could be simple to start with, and you can start anytime. It's just designing a plan, putting something on paper, I think is what I heard from you. And paper could mean digital in terms of typing it up, and just asking a simple question. Why is money important to me? What is it that I want to achieve? And what I loved about what you said as well is it's tailored to you. It doesn't have to be what your friend is doing or what someone else is doing. It's tailored to you and your needs that will help you to fulfill your dreams, and involving your family, which I think is great. And so thank you, Christine. I think another area or another partner to involve in financial literacy is the financial institutions. And I don't know, Gemma, I'm coming to you next, but could you weigh in around the role of financial institutions in building financial literacy, especially to marginalized communities?
Yes, I think definitely that the financial institution has a major role to play in that. I know for a fact that our community, the Black community, learns through hands-on communications, and I think it's the banks have to play a concerted effort to weigh in and reach out to the community. For example, when I worked at the Bank of Montreal and I was the workplace equality manager, I started a cross-country internship program called Possibilities, where we brought in about 100 students from all over Canada to work 1 day a week at the bank, and also to learn about banking and to learn about getting financial literacy. So I think the students, they were able to network with the employees of the bank. We gave them a $1,000 scholarship, so that started them off on the financial literacy program. And also, they had the opportunity to have higher learning by just being at the bank and seeing how people interact in the bank, how they deposit, how they withdraw. Because for these students, when we asked them, what do you know about banking? All they knew is that, or you go and you pay a bill, or you put in money and you take it out. But you have to have the money. My son used to say, Mom, when I say I don't have any money, he said, oh, Mommy, just go to the bank machine and get some. Because they don't have the knowledge. And I think we have to start at a very young age to educate our kids. It's too bad they don't teach that financial literacy program in schools. So I think the financial institutions with an internship program like the one I started at the bank. Now, after I retired, they took that program, which I designed for Black youth, and they gave it to the First Nations people. And they just stopped doing it for the Black community. And now the First Nations people are the ones that are having this opportunity to come and work at the bank and learn about financial literacy. So I really, really think that it's a great way, and the bank knows that too. It's a great way to harness these kids, and we need to help them. And the financial institutions should really play a role in doing this. So the kids can go get employability skills, and that will also encourage the financial literacy. So
that is so well said, and you know, kudos to you for what you started while you were at BMO. You know, understanding the financial institutions, understanding the communities it serves, and segmenting the strategies targeted to help those various communities and segments of clients and consumers is so key. And the youth, I love the program that you started. And when you talked about it being introduced to First Nations, I thought that's fantastic because the applicability is broad, but not so good if it then, you know, excludes one group that is marginalized. So I think that it's great what you just described, because it does help when it starts at a very early age. And I think about RBC Future Launch program, which aims to do the same thing. And the partnership with McGill and the Globe and Mail and RBC, and bringing a complementary financial literacy course to young people. So thank you for what you started, because the legacy, I'm sure, is continuing. So Caress, I'm going to come to you next, because we know that our leaders of tomorrow, we've been hearing this, need the education and awareness of financial literacy. Well, what's your perspective on how we could actually get our youth to understand the importance? Christine started off with understanding and being exposed to it with her mother and operating within a budget. And then, you know, Gemma also reinforced starting at an early age. But how do we actually get our youth to understand the importance of expressing their concerns, feeling comfortable expressing their concerns around financial stability and effective money management? Any thoughts?
Well, thank you. It's my passion, and I am actually feeling like the youth right now. I mean, I'm financially stable compared to what my options were. But I believe, and I really do believe, first we have to listen to them. Gemma and Christine confirm. To give them opportunity, you have to create an opportunity first for them to come to us. I do that through the community work I do. I work with at-risk youth, major crimes at the correctional facility. And sometimes I go in feeling it's too late. But really it's not too late, because they're still juveniles. And what my interaction with them brings is the opportunity for them to see things from a different perspective. You know, not from the hustle mentality, but I do ask questions. And I always have a little cue card with questions. Based on the client, what do you think brought us here? Why did you sign up to see me? So first I go in asking why they wanted to be in my program. Because one, it's an escape from them being in solitude. It's giving them an out. For me, it's a social meeting, but educational as well. So I ask those questions. What is, if they know what credit is, They think of credit in a different way that we would not even imagine. That's a different episode. What is wealth? They think of wealth as the social glitz and glam. I have those conversations with them. Then I'll ask, now, if you saw me outside, would you think that I would be somebody to help you to become financially independent, to help you make better choices? You know, I ask questions. So my thing is, we have to ask the questions, not in a judgmental way, but in a compassionate way. Talking about the bridges and the opportunities at RBC and BMO. I worked at Scotia Bank from 16 to about 30. I worked at the data center as a coordinator. I started processing large items for large companies. Back then it was Enbridge, Ontario Hydro. So I've been seeing millionaires' money from a young age. A young mother at school. So I had to make decisions based on what I'm doing. But, you know, another thing, I don't know if yourself, Christine, and Harriet are in a position now is, yes, the university students are getting access to financial literacy. Gemma has started a program which was giving an opportunity, but she's also confirmed that it's no longer available to, one, the Black community as it was when we were advocating, and two, the biggest block is the people like myself that can really deliver and willing to deliver no longer have access to these programs. We have this big thing with the age. You have to be 25 or 35 for these programs. So who are we going to ask now to advocate for us that are over 45 and maybe 55? For us seniors, like you retired individuals, how are you going to have access to these youths if you don't have access to the program? Right? Who's teaching budgeting to these young mothers and these young fathers? We have graduates coming out of university with big expenses because they were encouraged to take student loans, but who is empowering them? They're so discouraged. Then we get to the mental health challenge because they have these bills, they have no job. But I still believe it's all about listening to them, asking the questions, and remembering to show up not just for what we can give, but what we're really good for.
Wow, that is so amazing. And you asked some very powerful questions there. And I do, you know, just listening to you, first of all, one of the things that you said right up front is about creating opportunities for them to come to us, wherever that might be, creating that opportunity, and it's never too late. And while they might see it as an escape, you know, what you said is also key in that there might be a social element to it, but you leverage that social element to bring the educational, foundational aspects of finances and managing your money to bear and using examples that would resonate with them. And I also think individuals like yourself and those on this panel serve as role models as well, because your personal experience that you talked about is a powerful one to help. And I do think that your point around in your question about, okay, how do we get to some of these other groups that would not otherwise have access? So, you know, let's all keep that in mind, ladies, as we go about our day-to-day in terms of that powerful question. So thank you, Caress, for sharing that. And as we continue to think about students and youth, one of the topics I hear about often, in fact, just last week I was talking to a young woman about student loans, the only way that she seemed to think that she could survive. And so the topic of student loans, it is a topic, an area of worry for students. And I just wonder, Pat, in your experience, how would one minimize the use of student loans? After, of course, they've had all of the other 101 exposure to education that we heard about, particularly from Caress. So Pat, can you comment on student loans and how one would go about minimizing its use?
Well, thank you. And I support all of the previous comments, but I think it starts from as little as, I don't know, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, because we have to start teaching our kids at a very early age the importance of money and how important it is that we should prepare for our future. Not when we become adults, but as from little children. And I would just mention the EDGE program. We have a financial literacy segment of it. And this time we're going to increase it to 2 segments because it is so, I would say, detrimental to a lot of people when they graduate and the impact of that heavy burden of that loan. And another thing we are doing, we have little girls 6 to 10, and we never included financial literacy before. So this year we are going to include little boys 7 to 10 and little girls 7 to 10, and we have added financial literacy to their program. They get like dancing and etiquette and stranger danger, teaching them, not to go about with adults and all of that. But we thought we need to start them young. So financial literacy is added to their workshops, which is going to be new, but it is very, very important. The ability to think about money in all the ways like Christine mentioned, but we have to put it in their mind early. And although we only do a total of 40 kids, it is still the beginning. And we can start with them with even like their little piggy banks. A lot of grandparents give money to their grandchildren. They get money here and there. Just teaching them the importance of money and how important it is to save, to have a bank account and watch your money grow. Because money does grow. If you save it, it will grow. So we have to have these conversations with them very early. And to show them that, like, if you invest a certain amount in 10 years, because if you're 5, by the time you're 10, 15, you go to university, I think around 18, I'm not sure, and show them the importance and show them how that $100 or that $50 can grow. So we have to give them examples. So when time comes for them to go to university, they're not having to work. When a child has to work and study, they're not in the same boat, I would say, as the child whose parents saved and they do not have to work to pay their tuition. Not that work is not good. Work is good, but they might be able to work less. Because if you're tired after work, how could you study? If you have some extra money, you can stay on campus and be an example to others. So these are all the things. The burden of student loan debt is a burden. It prevents you from being able, because I think it's a 6 or 7 month period before you have to start paying off that loan. So it means that your first paycheck, much of it goes towards that loan. Whereas if you had saved a little bit, a lot of young people have part-time jobs, but they have to have the cell phone and all of the trimmings that we are accustomed to, that we have taught our children that's important. It is not that important. Work, spend a little, save a little. So it's the burden, that burden of that debt goes on. And even if you claim bankruptcy within the 7 years, that it does not erase your student loans. Student loans carry on and on. So we have to start speaking to our children at a very early age to help them minimize that debt. Minimize and see it as debt. It's not just a loan like you don't have to pay back. So we have to have these conversations with our kids at a very young age. And when they start working, teach them how to save and talk to them about going to college, university, or wherever, and look at the cost. Not only when they are doing their applications, but look at the cost. So get them familiar with all of the implication of debt. Student loans, it's a debt. You have, it goes against your credit when you want to buy a car, buy a house. And for many, many people, it's a burden. And with that burden could come depression, a feeling of uselessness. If you don't get the job that you went to school to study for at that specific time, what happens is you feel a sense of uselessness sometimes, and all of these things lead to mental issues. So,
Yeah.
we have to start paying attention to it.
Thank you, Pat. And, I would say that, first of all, the EDGE program that you talked about, that you were instrumental in, and some of the other programs we're hearing, those are really key. I'm really hearing a theme here of our youth and starting really early. Great to hear that the EDGE program is targeting girls and boys from 6 to 10 years old, because that's really early to help them understand the philosophy around money and how you manage money. So thank you for sharing that. I do think that and I'd love to open it up to hear from others in terms of debt, right? Because when young people get a certain age, it is important for them to start building their credit and building their credit responsibly. And there are some that have no choice but to have student loans because they weren't necessarily in a privileged position to get that education at an early stage, and their family situation is such that they would need to. And so I think there's a whole other angle of how do you help them understand once they transition in their career, how you manage that student debt, how you prepare for it. So even at the onset, there's a responsibility, I think, for not only parents or individuals in their sphere of influence to help them, but for the academic institutions as well, to be educating them around what they're looking to step into. So thank you for sharing that, Pat. But I want to pause for a minute and go back to the latter part of Caressa's question, because it's been sort of in the back of my mind, and I don't know if any of you have any comment there in terms of, how do we get to these other segments? There is a lot of focus on youth because we heard so many programs. But I want, Caressa, maybe for you to go back to your last point that you made, like how do you access, how do individuals that are retired? I know that when the day comes that I retire, I would certainly like to continue to help in whatever capacity I can in terms of helping. You've got single mothers, you have there's shelters for women where they were so dependent. I visited one pre-COVID where they were so dependent on their husbands or their partners to take care of them, and they had to flee the situation because of domestic violence, and they didn't know how to do anything because even going to do groceries, they were monitored by their husbands. So, I mean, we don't have a lot of time to dig into that aspect of it, but I just want to pause and see if anyone has any reactions to that part of Caressa's question.
Let me just add, maybe it'll provoke some, since we're interacting. My question extended is how? I mean, we have 100 accomplished Black Canadian women, but I mean, look at us. The five of us are connected today on a level that is so deep and emotional, and I would like to say spiritual, because we are all here for a purpose. And I'm sharing based on my personal experience. When I was young and was able to volunteer at all the different places, I've always been given the opportunity. I know I have all these awards and all these pins, but for me, I keep forgetting to mention them because that was not my purpose of being there. However, in this COVID, I find, whoa, I miss all those bridges I've built. Some have benefited, some have not. Now, my question is, I mean, look, I have you, Harriet, Christina, Gemma, and Pat. How can we commit not only to each other as our goals, but to the youths in the community? I've always focused on the boys because, and in a backstory, my family has been a victim of crime. So getting back to help these criminals, I don't feel that way. It's an opportunity, like I feel like I'm walking my path. But how do we really explore these opportunities for the girls? I never really worry about girls because I was one of those girls that, I rise above every challenge. I had great women like yourselves to push me from behind. But now I'm seeing the mismatch where we have confident girls, accomplished girls, boys the same way, but in reality, they really aren't. Because the system has created this bar where we have these girls that feel they're so confident, the boys that feel they're so successful because they're handling lots of money in the wrong way. How do we as mothers, and we can bring the men along as fathers and brothers and sisters, really create the opportunity? Because I'm over 50 and none of the programs I can explore, which cuts off the opportunity for me to come back and give. Because I can only give so much from my operation, you understand? So
Right.
Let's figure this out. You know, when I was young, it wasn't a big deal, but all of a sudden, Okeres, you won't be able to do this for the next year because you're over 45. And then they're retaining these teenagers that really aren't passionate about building the next generation. So how do we fix it?
It's a great question. Go ahead.
It's a really great question, Therese. And one of the things, as you were speaking, there are so many organizations, community organizations in, let's say, the GTA. And those organizations have a mandate, a social mandate. And I think that is where we need to explore with the organizations that actually focus on youth, whether it's girls or boys, to ensure that we advocate for proper funding for them so that they can bring in a lot more of these youth and ensure that they start them off on the right footing. Asking the same questions that you talked about, you know, and listening to them and guiding them as mentors and sponsoring some of them as well when they go out into the world, because I really believe it takes a village to raise children. It's that old saying. And I really think that more has to be done, because we see the outcomes of crime. We see the outcomes that happen to young people all the time. And we really have to find a way, as you said, to ensure community organizations take on a lot more social responsibility around taking care. Specifically, you know, Gemma talked about the program going off to the First Nations. That's fantastic. But we do have marginalized and Black boys and girls who do need to have that kind of discipline for the future.
Agree. I think, is it Gemma that's trying to weigh in as well?
Yes, I was thinking about, as she said, over 50 and the organizations that we have here. We've got so many organizations, but I think the problem with our organization is just the lack of funding from the government. Although the government now has put out so much money that they're going to give to the Black organizations and different people in business, entrepreneurs and stuff. But how do you get to this money? And I think that is a problem for our community. Like, first of all, they don't even know how to do the application form. We need mentors to mentor the mentors, you know, because there is a big, big lack in the community of resources, and how do you get the resources? And I think that's a big problem, because even with my organization, we have the same problem.
Yeah, that's
What I'm saying is that there are resources to a certain extent. I find participation is sometimes limited. I was on a call with the BBPA yesterday, and they were doing a financial literacy. They're doing quite a few programs, and I looked up, and there were 36 or only 36 people. And I go into some of these things to see how many people are actually there. For the youth, and I would go back to say that our program, it used to be like a cotillion ball. And as you know, a cotillion ball was where girls got groomed and they had a guy come the night of the ball and dance with them. Now, this program is different. Our young men and young women get the same teaching and coaching. We run 13 workshops. At the end of it, these young people, if you were to attend one, you would see they start off, I call it shaky, and at the night of the ball, they are confident. but getting more young people to participate is the problem. And it's from all walks of life. Yes, we do charge $300, but I can tell you, if a child comes into the program without that $300, they would never be turned back. We find the money. Before, we got no funding because it was only for Black youth. And because of that, we got no funding. And still, funding is quite difficult. But I ask my friends for money. We get, Christine, Oliver gives me money. I try to find the money, and we never turn away a youth. But even getting them to register is a problem. And even the kids who go through the program and their parents talk about how wonderful it was, do they ever recommend another child? So, I would say our group provides an opportunity, but we have a problem getting kids to register. And it's not about money, because we're guaranteed to find a sponsor for any child. So sometimes we just need to participate more, or to share, our knowledge and grow our community. We need to share better.
I agree, and I think that's a good that's a good segue now into to continue our conversation. Not so much what we're talking about here, but to continue on. But what I'd like to say to kind of wrap this linking back to Teresa's question is, I do think, to your point, Pat, there are numerous community organizations out there, and I was actually thinking BBPA. There's several organizations. Mm-hmm. And when you do look, I too, when I attended a session last weekend, I look to see the number. But if you think about all of the community organizations and what they're doing in totality at the aggregate level, I do believe that we're seeing penetration happening there. I'm hearing more conversations from financial institutions, not just RBC where I'm at, but all of the financial institutions, which Christine and I have had an opportunity to talk to some of them more, and because of another initiative we're working on. Increasingly, we're hearing about how do we help young entrepreneurs? How do we help young people? How do we help and more funding to these organizations? So I think it's about just getting that awareness out there. It's not starting potentially another organization, but how do we get the awareness out there of what already exists? And all of us here can start and continue with that as well. I just want us to, along the lines of personal experience, because I think each of you have shared kind of your personal experience. And I remember even as a child growing up, a family of 8, and watching my dad, who was so business minded, I didn't know to articulate it that way until I got older. The way he was making decisions about real estate and about working and so forth. And it was only later on that he took the time to explain to us how it worked. And I thought that would have been great to hear really early on, because he was such a phenomenal example of it. So, Christine, can you share, how did you go about developing financial knowledge throughout your career and your life? And what's one or two things you'd recommend to others?
Yeah. Well, Harriet, the foundation for my education is my alma mater. It really shaped my views on education. And the motto of my alma mater, which I'll share, it's Manning's High. It's the second oldest high school in Jamaica. And it's Vita Sine Litteris Mors Est. The translation is life without learning is death. And this has really shaped my views on education from a very young age. While I went the formal route of gaining knowledge through the Institute of the Canadian Bankers Program, the professional planning course, financial planning course, the Canadian securities course, and many others, I think anyone can start their journey using the many resources on the internet. We talk about, for example, Coursera, Udemy, edX, and many other MOOCs, where programs are free or they're discounted. And these are large academic institutions. So getting the information also, which is what I think Pat talked about, from the local financial institution and your local college, are ways to start the conversation and getting that knowledge. And I think, based on what I heard a while ago, I think I would recommend that talking to young children about finances at a very early age, because they're going to be making the buying decisions in the future. And they would benefit from the basic knowledge taught in a structured environment. And it can be simple for the mother and dad to pull those kids along to say, you know, we're going off to this organization tonight, and they're going to be talking about financial. I need you to come with me. So my ethos on lifelong learning also prompts me to continue learning about financial concepts, because it's not a one and done. It's a continuous learning experience and development.
It's a journey.
Yeah,
it's a journey.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. And I don't think that we could ever overemphasize, to your point, and everyone else that has spoken, just paying attention to our youth, because they are our leaders of tomorrow. And if they don't get it right, then, you know, there's so much downstream impact to their mental health, to their being successful, contributing citizens to society. So I don't think we could ever spend too much time on them. I do know, and thank you, Christine, for that. Caress, you have spent so much time giving back to marginalized communities, and we've heard about community members volunteering. All of us have and do our time across a myriad of areas. But can you talk about plans for volunteers to deliver financial literacy to other marginalized communities? So you've touched on it a little bit. I don't know if you want to elaborate just a little bit more.
Well, there are opportunities. There just need more of us, women that's willing to take off our shrouds and go, because these youths are not open to someone that appears to be all the way out here.
Right.
They also are not very open to us coming in as mothers. Do you get it? Like they know who their mothers are. They know who their grandmothers are. They evidently have not delivered what the children need. Hence the reason for them ending up in the situation. So I really struggle. Why? Because I'm an upstanding citizen, no criminal record. I'm financially stable. I run a business all on my own money management. As Christine said, what I applied to my life is what I learned getting my CFP, getting my securities license. I didn't have enough clients to experience the fortune of applying the knowledge. So I applied it to myself. I started at 16. You know, my son graduated university and he had nothing to worry about. And mind you, prior to getting there, it was a fight every day. Every day it was a fight because of my own fear. My daughter, I didn't have that because she already saw the benefits of commitment. But as a young mother with a boy, I think that's what fueled me. So what I want to say is, are we willing to go through the process to be exposed to the real marginalized youth? They're afraid of us more than we are afraid of them.
Yeah.
You know, they're afraid of opening up. They are doing things with the people they're comfortable with. However, those individuals are not giving them the tools to be lifelong learners, to be lifelong contributors. Those individuals are giving them destructive ingredients. So it's very hard. Could you imagine the 5 of us? Think about this for 5 seconds. 5 of us walks into an institution. We have no bodyguards. We have no security. We put all our fancies away from our jewelry. We're walking in neutral to a space with youths, which in the back of our heads, we knew they have already committed hideous crimes. You would not allow them in your space, but you're going into their space to empower them. Could you imagine what that is?
Yeah, that's a powerful statement and a powerful visual, and it certainly will take, to change the narrative, it will take courage. It will take bold moves. It will take suspending some of our biases.
Personal bias, yes.
Yeah.
I did that 3 times a week for 5 years. Thanks to COVID, I have an extended break.
Yeah, because it can be emotionally taxing.
Yeah, but look what's happening. Personally, youths that I've met personally that have made verbal and formal commitments to changing their behaviors were granted the opportunity. And what do? Go right back to that influence that brought them there in the first. I'm speaking.
Well, I think, sorry, Therese. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is. But it's, one of the things that I think it was Christine that said this is it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's never a one and done. It has to be ongoing. It takes a village. What you might plant, someone else is going to water. And so I think that we have to be encouraged. We have to take faith in that, and we have to continue, all of us in the community, look for ways, that opportunities to just make a difference and make ourselves available. So, Therese, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. I just have two final questions before we close, and that is to just link back to Pat and Gemma. Pat, I don't know, maybe I'll start with Gemma in terms of, when we talk about incentives or different programs to be able to offer to marginalized communities, let's say, to get them interested in finances. Anything else you would add, Gemma, in terms of what else financial institutions or community organizations can do to offer incentives to help?
Well, there are a lot of programs at the bank and different financial institutions, but they're not aware of it. The families, the parents are not aware. I think there have to be more targeted marketing to the minority community. For example, the RESP program. A lot of our community do not know that you can save when your baby is only a few months old. You can save, and it's very limited amount of money that you can save for their future education. I did it for my son when he was like 3 months old. And when he went to university, it didn't cost us a cent, and he graduated with no loans, no bursaries. So somehow we have to educate the parents, and that's where it starts at a young age. So I think the financial institutions have to have a way of reaching the community. Also, if I'm sure there are incentives for if you open an account as a student, you could get a donation from the financial institution. I think my son said 6 years ago they were doing that you open an account and they give you $50. But I am not sure if that is still going. But if it is, I think that has to be an outreach into the community to encourage the children to start saving and and opening the account.
Right, and thank you, Gemma. I will say we do have to close because of time. We could talk all day about this topic, but I just want our listeners that will be listening to this to keep in mind that it's never too late. You might have to take a little bit of a different path. It might take a little bit more of a sacrifice, but it's never too late to ask for help, because some of you might not have been able to start that RESP or other things. So I just want to say to any listeners out there where you might feel it's too late for me or this is hopeless, please reach out to your financial institution, your community organization, and try to get some help. We do have to close. Pat, I hate to be able to say we won't be able to go back to you, but do you have maybe just a couple of words in closing, Pat?
Yes.
Before I go to close?
What I would say is we as employees have to go to our managers and ask them for support. Scotia Bank still supports the printing of my yearbook that costs about $2,500 every year. And they have sponsored my EVA's auction for $35,000 for like 10 years. So we as people who are working in these institutions have to be the ones who should go and ask for what we want other people do.
Right, that's great. Thank you for that. And I certainly see it in spades in my organization. So well said. Ladies, listen, as I was listening to each of you, I was reminded of a quote by Winston Churchill. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And I want to thank you for giving. I want to thank you for leaving places and people better than you found them. Thank you for your time that you have invested today and imparting your wisdom and your passion to our listeners. I'm confident that your advice and tips is going to land, even if it's one person that changes their financial behavior as a result of this, you would have made a difference. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Harriet.
For joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again. Thank you all, ladies. And let's mentor the mentors. Thank you,
Yes.
Gemma. Thank you so much.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 woman growing strong. 100 woman where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny.